So
Great.
I'm going to talk about the biodiversity that's in our food system and how we're working in Canada, and more specifically in this region, to build more security into our seed system. We talk about seed security as a kind of a version of food security. So if we think of food security being in general the ability of people to be able to get the food that they need, and for the system that provides our food to be resilient to changes that come along and to be sustainable in the long term, that's food security. And part of that is the need for people to be able to get the seeds that they need in order to grow that food, and for the system that provides seeds to be secure and sustainable in the long term. This is an example. Think of this circle as being all the different kinds of food, all the different crops that you could get 100 years ago. We think about 100 years ago in Canada, you could find about 35,000 different kinds of food plants, but we don't have that anymore. What's happened in the last 100 years is 3/4 of all of our food diversity worldwide has become extinct. Because people weren't saving their own seeds, many varieties just weren't grown, they weren't propagated, and they disappeared because nobody was growing them. And so now we have about 1/4 of all that food diversity left. And when we look at that closely, we find out that this little green sliver, that's how much you can actually buy. Okay, out of the 1/4 of our food diversity that we have left, you can get about 1/10 of it. The other 90% is locked away in seed banks, or it's being grown by a few collectors, but you probably can't get those seeds. So we're really depending, our whole food system depending on 1/40th of the crop diversity that existed 100 years ago. And that's not a very safe place to be. So where is that other 90%? We've backed up the whole world's supply of seeds in this mountain, way up in the Arctic Circle, north of Norway, to keep the seeds safe. And right now it has about a million samples of crop seeds. Closer to home, in Canada, we have a seed bank at the University of Saskatchewan that keeps about 100,000 samples of seeds. It's a great big freezer that's in a bunker underneath a building at the University of Saskatchewan. And here's where the Canadian government stores Canada's supply of seed varieties. Each of these little paper envelopes is a different kind of seed. So they don't have very much, right? They only have maybe 100 grams of each kind of seed, but the diversity there is quite substantial. And then we have everybody else who's saving seeds. Then there are thousands of people all across the country who are collecting seeds, saving them, growing them again, sharing them around. And we have networks of people who are exchanging these rare seeds. So that's where the other 90% of our seed diversity is. So how do we increase the security of our seed system? How do we increase the access people have to all that food biodiversity? I mean, if everybody could get all the seeds that we still have, it would increase our access to diversity 10 times, because only 1/10 of it is in the seed companies. So the way we do that is we try to connect. We're getting seeds backed up to keep them safe. We're getting seeds out of the seed banks to keep them accessible. And then we're sharing them around so that they become available to growers, farmers, gardeners, anybody who wants to grow them. And that increases the diversity of seeds that are available to everybody. And that increases our food security, because it means we have more choices of what to grow. That means we have more room for adapting to change. This is a little seed collection made by a woman in BC. She's been collecting seeds since she was a teenager, and she's now, I think, something like 75 years old. So her whole life been collecting seeds and sharing them with people. And she's been sharing her seeds with people all over the country. This is not a secure facility, but this seed collection actually was completely lost and then replaced. It's located, or was located, in a town called Lytton in BC. And if that name rings a bell, it's because that's the town that was destroyed by a wildfire in July. And our friend who does the seed collection got out, but her seed collection did not. But what's happening right now is all the people she shared seeds with are sending their seeds back to her. And so she's actually reassembling her collection in just a matter of a few months, because it was not in just one place. It was in lots of different places, shared out among lots of people. So it's a really secure seed collection. There's like nothing, no natural disaster that could affect it, because it's spread out among so many different people in so many different places. And that's how we envision the connection that we make between seed savers who are collecting seeds in their communities and seed banks that are kind of a backup. It's a very different kind of model, but when you combine the two, you get wide public access on the one side, and you get very secure one location kind of security in the other. And if the seeds are being transferred back and forth across, then you get the combination of high security and broad public access. That's our goal. We've realized, and this is still a kind of a surprising thing in the industry, that we can count on farmers to do plant breeding. When you think about it, sure, of course, farmers have a very, very attuned sense of what makes a good plant. When they see it, they know it. And so we have that really good sense from farmers, combined with the technical ability and the connections. Not to discount the ability of plant breeders to do the same kinds of things. They have a serious amount of education in some of the finer points, and access to testing and the kinds of seed bank connections that we need to make this whole plant breeding thing happen. By combining those two skill sets, we have the best results that we would get, better than either farmer breeding by themselves or plant breeder breeding by themselves. So these are some of the ways that we bring that kind of bridge building to the greatest effect, where we're combining what happens on the ground, seed savers, networks of seed growers, farmers and their gut instincts, and on the other side, institutional seed banks, the seed banks way up north that have facilities that we could never build, and plant breeders with lots of technical education and abilities and connections. It's the bridges. It's the connecting those two kinds of worlds that gives us the best results in both cases.